Hi, Lori here. Talk about Chapter 7. We're going to begin with the 4 types of planning. Obviously, they are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Let's talk a little bit about each. Planning is the big picture stuff where you're looking for trends, trying to figure out where your company can fit in and add value, and also picking strategies to make your company successful. Organizing, this is where we're going to set up the structure of the organization and the systems and processes we need to accomplish whatever it is we're trying to do as a company. Leading, this is usually done at the top management level for creating a vision, but all the way through the organization, you do need leadership, and we'll talk about that later. The top management's job is to encourage others to follow the vision that's been created by talking about it both to the employees and with the employees so that they can get constant feedback and improve that vision. Controlling is just setting up the standards, measuring them, and making sure that you're on track to achieve your objectives. Having a little trouble moving us forward here. Next. All right, 5 steps of control. Those are, you need to establish clear standards. We call that SMAC, specific, measurable, achievable, and consistent with the overall goals of the company. So what you don't want to do is have a standard or a goal that doesn't help move the company in the direction that you want it to go. Then you monitor results. You compare those results versus the standards that you set. You let everybody know what those results are, and you need to take corrective action if you find a problem. Sometimes that corrective action may be changing the standards. 4 types of planning. We've got strategic planning, tactical planning, operational planning, and contingency planning. You can pause the video if you want to take a moment to read those. But let's take a soccer team as an example. So for strategic, our goal is we want to win games. Our tactical is that we're going to have a strong defense in the first half of the game to discourage the other team by having no opportunity to score. Operationally, we have 5 different offensive configurations that we can run based on the situation at hand. And then finally, contingency, we may have to switch to a strong offense in the first half if our goalie pulls a quad muscle. So those are examples, an example of a way that you could apply these 4 types of planning to something that you're familiar with. Vision and mission, guiding the organization. Well, the vision is, why are we here? Where are we going? What do we want to be? And that's a very, very big picture. Mission is the organization's fundamental purposes, and many mission statements are chock full of things, such as the ones that the book suggests. But I personally am skeptical about really long mission statements. I think there's a tendency in at least the United States right now towards cookie cutter missions. And my test of a mission, does it tell every employee, all the way down to the janitors, what to do in any and every situation? And if it does, if they can use that mission statement as a guide to how to do their jobs, then you've created a successful mission statement. We're going to do some exercises in class, I think, on the mission statement. But meanwhile, let's go back up. This is your freebie point on the test. Go find a company, find as unusual one as you can, and print their vision and mission statement and bring it with you to class. And that will be one of your points on your content quiz. Next, SWOT analysis. This has been around forever. We look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the organization, and then we take a look at the opportunities facing it and the threats that could be out there. Hence the SWOT analysis. Internal is what you're looking at for strengths and weaknesses, and then you look at the external world for your opportunities and threats. And I think we'll try one of these while we're in class too, assuming we have time. Decision making. The book gives you the 7 steps of decision making, and you'll want to write those down so you get familiar with them. But basically, decision making comes down to several approaches. I've identified a couple here. One is the rational model, which assumes that an individual or an organization can consider all alternatives, determine which one is best, or, well, determine the outcomes for each, designate a probability of achieving that outcome, and then doing the math to calculate which one is optimal. Bounded rationality was brought to us by Herbert Simon, great guy, really good thinker, and he said you can't possibly know all the alternatives. You can't possibly determine with any strong sense the probabilities of each of those alternatives and then come to an absolutely best answer. So in the end, we look at what we can and we make the best decision that we can, but we certainly don't take into account everything. And then there's rules-based. A lot of organizations use this, and that talks about if this happens, then do that. You'll find these rules-based decision-making in safety situations like nuclear power plants or airplanes. The crash of the U.S. air flight that safely landed on the Hudson, the pilot was in the middle of going through a checklist of if this, then that, as he brought the plane down. So safely, brought the plane down safely. So rules-based is often used at the lower levels of organizations as well. Problem solving. They distinguish in the book between decision-making and problem solving. I'm not sure I make as big a distinction as they do, but let's talk about it. It may require single decision, or I would argue multiple decisions. If you're in the middle of a complex and hairy problem, you're going to be making a lot more than one decision. It's usually about idea generating and then evaluating those ideas. There are some formal techniques that you can use. Brainstorming helps you generate ideas, and PMI, which means pluses, minuses, and implications, can help you evaluate ideas. Now here's a little tidbit for you. Did you know that Ben Franklin in 1772 wrote a letter to Joe Priestley talking about how to make a pros and cons list and then make a decision based on it? That was back in 1772. Organizing, who fits in where? Well, we begin with top management at the top of the pyramid. There are fewer of them. And we work our way down through middle management, frontline or first line management, and then finally employees. Who's in top management? Well, we have CEOs, chief operating officers, COOs, chief financial officers, chief marketing officers. I don't know why chief information officer gets a bump to the left. And chief knowledge officers. But it depends on the industry. So, for example, in investment banking, you're going to find chief compliance officers and also in regular commercial banking, because it's very, very important that they comply with all the rules and regulations and the laws. In airlines, railroads, you're probably going to find a chief safety officer because, of course, that really matters in those scenarios. I'm going to run you through a few examples of organization charts. Do not memorize these. But I did want to show you that they're not always, organization charts can be different. So there's the functional grouping where we have the head, and he has each function, like engineering, marketing, finance, manufacturing, accounting, etc., reporting to him. There's the divisional grouping. Procter & Gamble, this is how we were organized. We had a CEO, and then there was the toiletries division, and the food division, and the coffee and beverages division, and the soaps division, etc. There's also geographical structure, and here is Apple Computers before Steve Jobs passed away, and they have Apples in the America, Apple in Europe, and Apple in the Pacific, reporting all to the CEO. And then each one of these people, Apple Americas and Apple Europe or Apple Pacific, is like the president and CEO of their own little company. Here is an example of hierarchical versus flat organizations. Iroquois is a very flat organization. There's not much distance between me, the chief executive officer, and my lowest salesperson out there. In fact, there's only 2 levels, I think. But a lot of other businesses are very hierarchical, and they tend to have lots of layers. Don't have to memorize anything on this. Remember that. Skills at different level. Well, the text suggests that every level needs 3 skills: technical, human relations, and conceptual. I would add that every level, including employees, need leadership skills, and that's because even the employees are being asked to function in teams, and teams need leaders, and those leaders are often emerge from the employee class of worker. Okay? Mix of what you need changes at different levels, and the book talks about that. You're obviously going to need more leadership and conceptual skills when you get to the tip top, and where at the bottom you're probably going to need more technical skills, and it shifts around in between, but you're going to need all 4 at all levels. Characteristics of a good leader. Well, they're going to provide a clear vision. They're going to model your corporate values and promote ethical culture. They're going to embrace change and embrace transparency, and you need, at that point, at that level, to stress accountability and responsibility, because if you don't, you will not get the performance that you're hoping for from your organization. Leadership styles, the book talks about autocratic, participative, and free reign. As you can see from my funky arrow on the right, they're less centralized authority as you move from the top to the bottom. Obviously, the less centralized your authority, the more you need to empower your workers. And that means enabling them to make decisions and to move forward without having to constantly check back with management. Customers, you got to keep them satisfied. And you have both external and internal customers. The external ones are the people who buy your stuff. And the internal people are the ones who help you create and deliver your stuff. At Iroquois, we like to say that we have four customers. One is our members. The second is our carriers. Those are our suppliers. The third is the field. And the fourth is internally in the office. We are each customers of our other workers. And that's it for today's presentation. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.